Hello, RAP students. This is Dr. Smith here today to talk to you about, actually we're going to do some problems. Let's do some problems about the ecosystem, dealing with the food chain, food webs, okay? So this is geared towards 5th grade, dealing with questions that you would have on EOGs because we're doing practice problems. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. And if you would like to try and solve these problems without me first, now's a good time for you to go ahead and pause your screen. All right, let's get started. Question 1. Which type of animal usually eats both producers and consumers? So I'm going to underline that we're looking for the animal that eats producers. You have to know what producers are. They actually produce food. And consumers. Consumers eat producers, pretty much. All right, so let's start with A, an omnivore. What's an omnivore? Omnivores eat plants and animals. So plants are producers and animals are consumers. So we'll keep that one, okay? Let's go to carnivores. Carnivores eat animals, not plants. So they don't eat producers because producers are plants, usually. So we're going to mark it out. C, herbivores. Herbivores eat plants. So they don't eat consumers because they only eat the producers, okay? So we're going to mark it out. And predators hunt animals. So they eat animals, the consumers. Animals are consumers. So they don't eat producers such as plants. So we're going to mark it out. So it seems as though we have our answer because the omnivores eat both, okay? Let's move to the next one, number 2. Which has the greatest effect on the amount of salt in a salt marsh? So there are different kind of marshes. Marshes are pretty much the between of water or a body of water, any type of water, and land. So it's wet and it has some grass in it, okay? But this particular one has salt. Now, we have to figure out what is going to give the greatest effect on the salt of this marsh, okay? So, A, the number of animals living in the marsh. Do the number of animals affect the salt content? I would say no, okay? The closeness of the marsh to the ocean, it could be that if you have a body of salt water, it could possibly be that. So let's just leave it. The closer it is, the more water that salt water there can be. Let's go to C. The depth of the water in the marsh. How deep the water is does not have as much to do with the salt content. So we're going to mark it out. And D, the temperature of the water in the marsh. Whether the water is cold or hot, it can still be salty. So the temperature doesn't have as much of an effect, I think. So let's look at the one we did not mark out, the closeness of the marsh to the ocean. So if it's close to salt water, a huge body of salt water, and it's the in-between before you get to the land, doesn't it make sense that there's going to be more salt in the marsh? It does, right? It's going to have a bigger effect, and temperature really won't have an effect. So we're going to go with B. Now, 3, number 3. Which classification best describes herbivores? What are herbivores? Hope you remember, they eat plants or producers. And I think I just gave you the answer, but let's look anyway. A, What's the best classification? Are they producers? Producers pretty much make the food that's going to be eating. So we can't really say that they're producers, but I'm going to leave it for now. Would you say a herbivore is a consumer? I would say they are a consumer, so I'm not going to leave that there. Are they a predator? Do they hunt anything? They don't. You don't have to hunt plants. So, are they decomposers? They're not, because decomposers pretty much are dead and they're in the soil, and they pretty much break down and put nutrients back into the soil. So herbivores aren't that. So we know that that herbivores don't produce food. In this case, that's going to be plants that are going to be their producers. So we're going to mark that out, and we're going to go with consumers because that's the best description. Number 4, what will be most affected if the decomposers in an ecosystem are removed? What's going to be the most affected? If you take out the decomposers do what? When things die, they go into the soil and they break down and they put nutrients back into the soil. So let's see. What will be most affected? The spread of disease. It could be affected, but I don't know about the most affected. The availability of water. That will not be affected by there not being decomposers. C, the quality of the soil. That will definitely be affected because decomposers are in the soil, okay? And they put nutrients into the soil. The distribution of organisms. How organisms are spread out or distributed, not as effective. The most affected. The most affected will be the soil because that's where decomposers actually are, okay? So I would go with the quality of the soil and mark the others out. Now, number 5, last one. Which would most likely cause a decrease in the population of herbivores? Herbivores eat plants, right? So what's going to decrease the population of our plant eaters? Let's see. The most likely. An increase in the number of producers. If you increase the plants, will that decrease the population of herbivores? I would think it'd do the opposite because they now have more food they can eat. More herbivores may come to a particular population, to a particular area that has more food for them, okay? So let's mark that out. A decrease in the type of decomposers. If you decrease the type of decomposers, not sure how that will affect things just because we don't know what decomposers you're talking about exactly. It's kind of ambiguous, meaning it's not very clear. So we're going to just leave that one there. An increase in the type of plants. If you have an increase in a type of plant, don't herbivores eat plants? So it may increase your population of herbivores because, like I said, more plants will come, unless it's something that's poisonous, then it might be different, but we can't say for certain. So let's just leave that one alone. Let's go to D, an increase in the number of carnivores. Carnivores eat animals. So if you have herbivores that are animals that are eating plants, but all of a sudden you have more animals that hunt other animals. So let's say you have 100 lions and you have herbivores that are, you might have 200 herbivores in the area. What if your amount of lions increases. They're going to need food, right? And what can they eat? Herbivores. So that may decrease the population of herbivores. So I would go with that. I would go with D. Okay? And I hope that you got the same answers. If not, like I said, continue to practice, talk to your teachers and your RAP family so that you can get some help with the concepts. Continue to practice those questions. And remember, it's always important to exercise your mind as well as your body. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Please be sure to like, subscribe and share this video. It helps us reach more people who could use our help.